So you're wondering about feminine versus masculine energy. In this video, I'm going to dive into what these two energies are and how you can tap into both for greater joy, success, and fulfillment in life. So my promise to you is that as a result of this video, you're gonna look at life and feel life in a whole new way than ever before. So in order to understand the concept of feminine and masculine energy, we need to first talk about polarity. Polarity is basically opposites, or two things that are opposing. So feminine and masculine are opposites. And another thing we want to think about is, instead of associating feminine and masculine with women and men, we want to dissociate those terms from gender, and we want to really focus on just the essence of the energy, of what feminine energy is and what masculine energy is. And we want to separate those two energies from this concept of patriarchy. So what I'm talking about is that currently in this political climate, in this social climate, there's a kind of a bit of there's an embracing of the feminine energy, which is awesome. And there seems to be a little bit of a backlash against masculine energy, as if masculine energy were somehow bad, or that it was somehow, hurting feminine energy, which it isn't. They're both beautiful. They're both important. They're both part of our human nature, and we need both feminine and masculine for the world to go around. Even the most basic part of life, which is the moment of conception and creation, requires both energetics, right? So we want to separate this conversation of masculine and feminine from the conversation about patriarchal. So the patriarchy is the system within which the masculine has dominated the feminine for about 10,000 years. But that's a whole nother conversation we'll talk about in another video. But what we want to do is separate this conversation about feminine and masculine from a conversation about patriarchy, which is the dominance of the feminine. So right now we are in an era in the world, on the planet, where the feminine energy is rising and the feminine is starting to take ownership and leadership. And what that looks like is more of the feminine coming into business, more of the feminine coming into politics, and not just from a sense of women coming into business and politics, that too, but the feminine energetic. So let's talk about what the feminine energetic is and what the masculine energetic is, so that we can understand how these forces are now shaping and shifting the world. So over here, let's call this the masculine energetic, which some people refer to as yang energy. And that's a really great word and a way to kind of separate this masculine feminine from men and women and from gender. So the masculine energetic, also known as yang energy, is the energy of focus, the energy of direction, the energy of structure. So if you think about it, it's the things that we've generally associated with a more masculine personality, right? So the masculine energy, the yang energy, is the energy that penetrates. It's the energy that creates and builds and grows things, right? So if we think about the world for the last many hundreds and thousands of years has been dominated by a masculine energy, and we can see that that's led to conquest, it's led to exploration, it's led to building big skyscrapers. And a lot of this has happened with very little of the feminine energetic integrated into it. Now, on the other side, we have feminine energy, and that feminine energy is the opposite of that yang energy, and we call it yin energy. And the yin energy is the energy of receptivity. It's the energy of nurturing, of love, of the mystery, of the unknown. So whereas the masculine is about defining and structuring and knowing, the feminine is the opposite. It's unstructured. It's more about flow and openness and dancing with the mystery. And so what we're seeing on the planet right now is the rising of this feminine, nurturing, loving, caring energy. Now be careful. I'm not saying that the masculine doesn't love and care, and I'm not saying that the feminine can't build and create, but simply that in these most simplified terms of yang and yin, right? That there's this there's a distinction between these two energies. And really, the magic happens when the energies come together, right? Just like in that moment of conception where the sperm, which is the penetrating, focused energy, meets the egg, which is the receptive, nurturing energy. These two come together and create new life. And that's how it is in all aspects of life, but simply in this patriarchal system that we've had for a long time, the masculine has been the dominant energy. And what's happened as the feminine has started to rise, especially in the last 100 years or so, the feminine has, in a lot of ways, still been suppressed. In other words, when women started to enter the workplace, they didn't necessarily enter the workplace and bring all of this feminine energy. In a lot of cases, women entered the workplace and started to adopt masculine energy in order to compete and be able to win and achieve and get ahead. And what this is creating right now is a lot of women who are exhausted and tired and overworked and stressed and type A and overwhelmed and heart disease and all the same problems that men have faced. And at the same time, our feminine nature and that feminine energy and that feminine natural way of being is also starting to come through and starting to assert itself and starting to kind of come forward even in a world that has been traditionally male dominated for a really long time. So let's talk about a couple of different dichotomies within the masculine feminine one. What does it look like? There's a distinction between the masculine focus and the feminine receptivity. The focus is clear and directed and straight and organized, whereas the receptivity is more all-encompassing and open and flexible. If the masculine is clarity, then the feminine is mystery. If the masculine is logic and reason, then the feminine is emotion and intuition. If the masculine is structure and organization, then the feminine is flow and flexibility. If the masculine is the container, then the feminine is the water in the container. Is this making sense? Okay, so you might be asking, how do you incorporate more of the opposite energetic in your life? So perhaps if you're a man and you felt like you've been in this masculine focus, perhaps you could use adopting some feminine energy for more flow and flexibility. And if you're in the feminine and you feel like you've adopted a masculine approach or a masculine style, perhaps this is an opportunity to say, what would happen if I adopted more of my natural feminine energy? Right? Or if you've been fully in the feminine, very flowing and peaceful and flexible, but you haven't been seeing a lot of results in your life, maybe it is time to get more active and more bringing in some of that masculine energy. So what you'll want to think about as you explore these two energetics is where in your life could you use more flow and flexibility and receptivity, and where in your life could you use more focus and direction and structure? And I would posit that every single one of us could benefit from taking on more of both energetics. So now that we've talked about masculine and feminine energy, how would you like to incorporate more of that flow and more of that freedom into your business? Well, if you're curious about how to do that and have more flexibility, more flow, more enjoyment, more fulfillment in your business, then download my Monetize Your Magic playbook. And this will help you build a business that's more aligned with who you really are, more stable and sustainable and easy, and also more enjoyable and fun. Click the link below and get your Monetize Your Magic playbook right away.